elongated the NATO front with Russia much more than Russians would have desired at this point in time. So that, yes, certainly is a big disadvantage. And as far as war is concerned, so who knows how the things are happening, what are the things behind the scenes happening. But yes, both sides are losing. Maybe Ukrainians are losing much more. Russia is a huge country. It is occupying 1/6 of the landmass of today. Population wise, yes. But as far as weapons wise is concerned, the type of infrastructure that is there within Russia is difficult to match for anyone actually. And if they start producing for themselves, and which they have the capacity and capability, it is to say that they will finish off with this. What we keep on hearing, they have 3 days of reserve or 15 days of reserve. At times, you keep on hearing this. No, I don't think that may be a very correct thing to say. It's not a good thing for any of us, including the wider world, apart from the persons who are participating. Where it will go, as of now, difficult to say. And who's winning again as of now? But what Russia wanted, they really achieved it. At some point in
So
time, some sense will prevail, and people have to sit down. Ultimately, tanks and guns are not the solution.
yeah, before we go further, I would like to tell my viewers that because of some technical snag, we could not start the broadcast at the right time. But we have started the broadcast, and hope that you all will join, like the session and the show which we are taking through at this point in time. We were discussing the prospects of the future of the current offensive which is taking place, and a likely solution of this particular conflict, which has been eluding despite the number of nations trying to mediate, whether it was China, whether it was Turkey, whether it was Israel, whether it was India. And on a number of occasions, people have intervened and tried to find some solution to this problem, because it's not only a problem of Russia and Ukraine now. It's a problem of the world. It's a problem of the countries, especially the developing countries, the third world countries, which are dependent on the grain of which is supplied from the Ukraine. In fact, the Black Sea grain treaty is now undergoing some stress, with the Russians deliberately trying to delay in checking the various ships which are taking these grains out. And with this damage, as General Mehra has pointed out, the granary is also going to get affected, and which will indirectly impact on the people's food security, and especially Africa. I'm wondering what will happen to them. Even Europe is actually under stress, because the Ukrainians were the granary of the world. In fact, wheat was their a strong point. How is that all going to get overcome? Hopefully, we should find some solution to that. The dam, as we had discussed, was basically blown up. We are still not sure as to who is involved in it. But overall, if you see, the Russians definitely had a major advantage by the blowing up of this dam, because it stops them from, or it prevents the Ukrainians from undertaking an offensive, at least from the Kherson area for the time being, because of the area having been flooded, the terrain now not permitting Western equipment, which is definitely much more heavier than then even then also, armor offensive is very difficult in areas which are waterlogged. And therefore, overall, I think the game seems to be very complicated now, and General Hera seems to be trying to unravel that game. So my next question to you, General Mehra, is that, is NATO losing patience?
Sorry, sir.
Uh, is NATO losing patience now with Zelensky, and maybe forcing Zelensky, if Ukraine does not make any major headway, as you are suggesting, given the training differential between the Russians and the Ukrainians, to go in for a peace process?
Sir, I firstly about the Russians. Just a point about the Russians. It's been 1 year, almost 16 months now into the war, and with every month they have gained experience, and they have become. They will become better and better, and so it is. And Ukrainians, on the contrary, are being trained by variety of, not one variety of European nations
Yeah.
in bits and
Yes.
pieces. So one this force and one solid force, which is becoming better and better. And Russians always learn from their the past
Mistake.
experiences, be it the previous wars, so how they learn, implement, and then come back very strongly. So be that as it may. Now, as far as patience is concerned, sir, we see the number of protests that are happening in the Western world, be it the UK, be it Germany, be it even France and all. Also, the price rise. They are buying today the oil and gas at
Yes.
many times what they were earlier buying. 80% of Germany gas was being supplied by Russia. Today it's zero. If it's zero, from where the gas they are getting? Either they are getting through third parties, the same Russian gas coming through and paying the price in
Yes.
between, or they are buying it from across the Atlantic again at a very astronomical cost. So ultimately, who's
Yes.
going to be the loser? The Russian gas is being stored. That is for sure. They are getting their way the way they want it. However, the biggest loser is going to be the Western Europe or the economies of these countries. So yes, to an extent, they are losing they will be losing the patience, and not that is one part of it. Look at the refugee crisis. They were burdened with the Libyans or the Syrians or the Ethiopians and so many other refugees which have come into Europe. They were having problems in managing those. And on top of it, now we have millions being displaced from Ukraine itself, the refugees. That causes additional strain on the economies and the social strata of these countries. So, yes, there is a problem within NATO, and there would be. So they have to come out with some sort of a solution where they sit across the table and they need to talk. And we should not forget. I would quote here in 2016 when President Putin gave an interview to the icon of Israel. I think it was Prime Minister Shimon Peres, who after he had when he retired from active politics. Um, he says we never wanted Crimea. We were very happy that Crimea was in Ukraine. We never ventured right from 91 till 2014. We never ventured into Crimea. It is still the time you wanted Crimea and Ukraine to come into the folds of NATO that created a problem. And then we had to act. So I
Yes,
will
I
take
think.
you back to 1986 to 90 when the negotiations were on. There are written documents today. When you Google, you will find them out of the archives of the US and all. Where certain sort of guarantees, so-called guarantees, that the US and the West said no, there were no guarantees, but Russia said there were guarantees, where they were told that NATO will not move an inch to the east. The number of NATO
Yes,
members was 16, and today there are 31, 32 on the verge of being 32. And
that's
with
right.
every new member, Russia has been saying, "He don't do it." So there are issues involved in that, and I think somewhere people have to sit across the table and get
Yeah,
on with it.
you're right. And they're saying that another Ukraine is in the offing with Moldova. So we don't know what is going to happen in future as well. Well, it's very complex situation, and I don't think it is easy to unravel such a scenario where the global issues are also competing with the local issues, operational issues, tactical issues, with one superpower directly involved and the other superpower indirectly involved through the proxy of Ukraine. Ukraine seems to be biting the bait of the West and continuing to wage an offensive which it knows has no end, especially against a country like Russia, if it is one on one, despite the fact that the West has been supporting. I keep saying 6 is to 60, and the meaning of 6 is to 60 is if the West has given him $6 billion of aid, Putin has earned 60 billion from the gas and oil. So who is funding whom? I don't know. Who is funding whom? Whether West is funding the Russians. Sanctions have not had the impact which the Americans possibly thought, or the Western world possibly thought it would have on the war destiny, outcome of the war. Outcome of the war remains as it is. The Russians, although mind you, are under stress. So what do you have to say on that? And that will be our last question. And after that, we will wind up our discussion. They say that the Russians have started buying back the equipment which they had supplied to their partners, uh, as part of the defense deals.
Sir, they are under stress. There is no doubt, sir. A nation is at war for last 16 months, and the resources are being pulled into pump in equipment to
Yes.
the troops on the front line. There is no doubt on that. But as far as buying back the equipment and all is concerned, we should always take it with a pinch of salt. They have got adequate capability spread in the deep Russian area of Siberia and other areas where they have a capacity and capability to produce the equipment. There is no doubt on that, sir. So buying back, I will take it with a pinch of salt till the time hard evidence is given, because a lot of Western propaganda. A couple of weeks back, it was said that only 10 days of reserves are left with the Russians of a particular weapon, of a particular gun. So this will keep on
So
happening, as you said, in the
they,
beginning
they,
fog of.
the Rush, they were talking about not the entire weapon or equipment. They were saying that a first they have kept on hold the equipment which they had to supply. Second, they are saying that the spare parts which are available in which were supplied to various countries, those are being bought back, and with the promise that they will be replenished as and when their production is ramped up. So what I'm trying to say is that there is a level of stress, and we must acknowledge that fact, and which probably sometimes prods these Ukraine and the powers that are supporting Ukraine to undertake such offensive actions, which are, to my mind, may show some promise in the initial stages, but subsequently, even if the Russians lose out on some areas, they will bounce back and come back again. So, with that, General Mehra, thank you very much for having discussed the this very important issue with us. In fact, there was a problem. We were not live for quite a while because of some technical issues. We have made the discussion live just halfway through our discussion. Hopefully, it will not occur in the future. I'll request all the audience to kindly like and subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell icon so that we can bring you some interesting discussions. I will end my talk today, our discussion today with you, by going over our presentation again, because in the initial stage we were not live. So basically, viewers, what we discussed today was prompted because of certain actions or certain events which have taken place in Ukraine, and these I will just briefly cover for you. Okay, first of all, the situation which all of you must be aware is that Bakhmut got captured, and the whole problem started thereafter. You had the Russian paramilitary forces supposedly supporting Ukraine, going into Belgrade and carrying out raid. The strengths were varying from 75 to 100. Everything gets veiled in the information war. They did cause some amount of rattling as far as the Russian defenses are concerned, Russian preparations or Russian security is concerned in that particular part of Russia. But they were able to beat back these paramilitary forces. Then you had the hydroelectric dam in the Nova Kakhovka area, which got damaged, basically waterlocking the entire region, and also preventing any kind of major operations to take place from this area. Therefore, it's a damage to the either side. Neither Russians can undertake any offensive toward that side, and nor the Ukrainians can take. But you can say it has been an area denial plan. So, who's denied the area to whom is a question which is now covered in the information war, and which General Mehra covered it also in a great detail. He gave out the statistics of this area, and uh, how much of it has been affected, how many people have been affected. We all are by and large aware. About 13 people were reported missing, 5 were dead, and about over, I would say, 4,000 to 5,000 people were affected severely. Otherwise, the total population affected was quite a few. Then you had the three-prong offensive, which has been launched from the 9th of June, and and these were generally in the area north and south of Bakhmut, and then in the area of Orkhiv, which is closer to Zaporizhia. Zaporizhia, as you all know, is a nuclear power plant, which is now totally shut, and therefore adding to the problems of the whole region as such. And then what is playing out in the last few days, I find and so was told by General Mehra, is the information war which is taking place. Both sides are claiming massive damages to each other, releasing videos. In fact, if you go on the net, it looks like most of the videos are doctored, or most of the videos are being picked up from the past and then being replayed. One is not very sure what is correct, what is wrong. Take it with a pinch of salt that yes, there is a war, damages will take place, but not to the levels which are being claimed by both the sides. Then you have the NATO exercise Air Defender 2023 taking place in Germany from 12th of June to 23rd of June. The timings are critical. It's kind of a strategic signal to the Russians as well. And therefore, we should be careful as to what would be the impact. And then we discussed the likely end to this particular crisis. We are unable to find an end as of now because of various factors. Although mind you, given the economics, if there is a rational player, he should start going onto the negotiating table for peace. And finally we are closing our discussion today with the promise that technical snags sometimes do happen, and so therefore we will be careful about it. Thank you very much, Jai Hind, and thank you, Jal Mehra, for having spared your time and joined us for discussing with us this very important issue. Your knowledge of the people of that area possibly has given us some sense of not jumping to conclusion, and giving a sense that Russia, what Russia is, we should take it. We should take it that they are superpower. They are under control of the situation, and the Western propaganda somehow it takes overtakes the entire the net and the digital media. So one gets a one-sided view of the situation. Thank you very much, sir, and look forward to meeting you in future as well.
Thank you very much, sir, for getting me here. Regards.
Bye.